Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. I'm a little more casual today. It's been pretty hot and I do have the AC on in the shop, but I need to be comfortable. So today I'm wearing shorts. Now, you probably have seen all the videos on this car. This is the 1969 Cobra Jet that I started on a few years ago, or a couple years ago. And there's been some issues over the years with the whole process. However, I am at a point now where I'm ready to start putting the front end together. So you can also see that I've moved it from my paint booth area in the back of the shop to the front section. And I want to be able to get the fenders on, and I'm still working on the quarter windows. You know, I've mentioned about those. Those are probably the biggest things I have to deal with right now, is the fender and the quarter windows. Now the other thing I'm working on is getting the hood blacked out. So I've started prepping that. I'm in the process of doing that, and that'll be coming later on. So I need to get this the front fenders on, and I'm going to show you some details on that. I also plan to put on the front valance. The hood latch support goes in the front there, and whatever else needs to go on the front of this car. Now, also, you may remember that I had started on this car. It was a 69 Cobra Jet, and it was rusted to pieces, right? And during the build, the owner wanted me to set it up for air conditioning. So the cowl, the vent on this side has been capped off, but I'm not going to do any of that extra work to put the AC units in, you know, the main box. I'm going to leave everything boxed up because the car is going to be finished by somebody else. And so I don't want to open up that box, get some stuff mixed up possibly, and have to deal with it later. So I'm going to leave everything alone and just kind of bypass that. I do have, like I said, the fenders and the hood and the cowl are in the paint booth now, and I'm starting to prep those for the blackout. So let's go over some of the other details with the front of the car. Now there's a lot going on when you put the front fenders on the car. Ideally, you want to get them set in the right location with the hood if you can, so that you have your in and out indexed, right? And so that'll set your gaps and all that sort of thing. At this point, I already know the fenders are going to fit very well. I'm more concerned at this point with having the door and the fender lined up so that I can put the stripes on the side of the car like I already started back here. And I've also put the stripes on the deck lid and the rear, or the extensions. So that all turned out really nice. Now, normally when you put these fenders, if they came from the factory, there was a material here, I believe it's called a mastic, and it's like a soft, I don't know, clay kind of feel to it. I don't know, like it's not a foam, it's just a weird kind of material. And they would have put it on top of the bolt locations, so when the fender was on it, it compresses and it acts as a water stop. I do have some of that material. I'm not going to put it on. And the reason for that is I don't know for sure who is going to be putting the rest of this together. Like, I'm not doing the engine, I'm not doing any of this stuff under the hood. So if they need to take everything apart, I need to plan for that. I don't want to have that material there. It's not a priority. This car is not obviously going to be driven in the rain and snow and all that sort of thing like they originally did. So it's not that big a deal. Now, Charles had ordered parts for this car, and he had ordered a bunch of things, and one of those things he ordered was the bolt kits. So there's a bolt kit for the engine bay, there's an interior bolt kit, there's a chassis bolt kit, and I'm going to use pieces and parts of that to put this together. So the fenders, you can see here, fender tops only, and there are 12 bolts in this kit. So there are 6 holes on top on each apron. And then in the front section, you have these 4 holes. There's 2 on each side. And I'm just going to use standard bolts for those. And what I've done is cleaned up some of the original bolts and, you know, painted them. So I have those for the front section. And then these brackets, they go down here where this lag bolt is. And you'll see the shape of them is kind of unique. So like this one with the little flange pointed forward actually goes on the driver's side. And this one with the little flange forward and the whole inboard goes on the passenger side. And then there's nut clips that go on the bottom of those, and then bolts will go up through those and hold the fender in position. Also, I have, you'll see them laying down here, I have these shims, and I believe I have 3 shims. The other one's kind of hiding back here. There it is. I have 3 shims that go under this rocker panel right about here. Okay, so this side I know needs 3 shims, and the other side doesn't need any. Also, there's a nut here on the fender that you'll come open up the door and go through this space to put a bolt there. All that is to help you index and hold it steady. One thing I did have to manage was this plate. So when I put the fender on, I welded these on and everything was fine, and I realized the gap was a little bit tight with the paint, clear coat, and everything else. So I kind of reshaped this a little bit. You can maybe see how it's bent. And what I did, I forced this to move forward to keep the fender from coming back. You could put a shim in there if you wanted to. I think this might be a little bit easier to do that. So the bolt kit, as you can see, there's 12 silver top bolts there. These are the bolts for the hood, and I also put the bolts in where the hood hinges go, and all those came labeled in that kit. So I will be adding these pieces as well. This is the front support that holds the latch mechanism, and then this supports the apron, the rock guard, and all that sort of stuff. But right now I'm focused on getting the fenders on the car. That feels better. That's one down. I'll get the other one on and then move on to some of the other stuff. Now that I have both fenders on, I'm going to put on the hood latch support. That is what this big piece is called, and this is an original part from this car. And I found the hardware kit, and I guess there's no other way to do it than just rip it open. But these are also silver. So that'll look nice against the black. I think these are, oh, the AKC or something, whatever the brand is. I'll have to look it up. AMK, sorry. AMK products. It says it right there. So pretty simple. This can really only go one place. But it's nice to get stuff on the car. Now, I also have the hardware kit. This one is for the grill support, as it's called. So I open that up. Grill center support. And there is, in this kit, it comes with 2 bolts and 2 nut clips. So, looking at this, now you can see it, this is an indent here and here versus this, which is flat. So I'm going to assume that the bolts are what just go through there, and you don't put the nut clip on these. And these holes are oblong, so you can slide this up and down. So these nut clips will have to go in on this recess area. There's 1 and 2. Now, I'm just going to put this on here for now. I don't know that I'm going to need it for a little while. You know, and I don't want it sticking out because I'll probably run into it and bend it. But I'm just going to show you, this will attach here and here. And these are actually a 7/16 head on these bolts. So with this held in place loosely, I don't know that, I don't see it interacting with the latch, right? So what I have here is the hood latch and catch. In this you've got 4 bolts, and the hood catch, I'm assuming, is, talking about the bar that goes up on the hood itself. So I'm also going to assume that the silver bolts are going to go in here. So the 2 nut plates will go on, and these are longer too. You see there's a pretty long compared to the other style. And so again, looking at how this is shaped, this is going to come in like that, and this one will go that direction. It's a little tighter. It's going to take a little more effort to get that one in. There it goes, no problem. So again, assuming we went with silver, because why not? The silver looks really nice. Okay, that is the basics here. I'm not gonna, probably not gonna go any further at this point. Later on, I need to hang the valance, but before I put the valance on, I probably need to put the headlight buckets on. Now, I will tell you, I'm having some issue with these, and I've had issue with the mirrors as well. And the problem is, these headlight extensions and the mirrors were exposed to some very, very rough weather. And we don't know exactly what's causing this. I've talked to my PPG rep, I've talked to some other people, and there is some reaction happening on the top surface of these and on the mirrors, and only in those areas. And what it's doing is it's creating a little blister, and that blister is sticking up just, I mean, it's hardly even noticeable, but I know it's there, and I can't let that go. So I may end up having to respray these along. I know I'm going to respray the mirrors, but for these to go on, and these are not the correct studs. These are just what I used when I was painting it. I have to get those to line up, and then that'll come back and fit like a glove, so to speak. But I'm gonna have to address these spots, because if I don't, it'll probably come up later and be an issue. So I may just move on and get the stripes on the side of the car and deal with this later. Well, this is what's going on. I had a couple little bumps up here that I was concerned about because I had an issue with the mirrors on the car. When I put it out in the sun, the mirrors blistered just a little bit. And so I've been trying to repair those, redo those, and I decided I better test these forward headlight bucket or headlight extensions to see if anything's going to happen. And sure enough, this thing bubbled. Now, the problem is this car was exposed to the elements in Florida, and apparently from what I've learned, there was a creosote plant nearby that, creosote for telephone poles. And from what I'm understanding, that stuff is very aggressive, and being that this was exposed, it had no paint on it. When I started on these were pretty much all bare. So these upper surface areas, this flat section here, and this surface down inside, you can see all these little bumps that are all over this thing, and it's all on the flat surfaces. So these are not going to be used on this car. I know that there's probably a way to treat these, take them all down to bare metal and start over. I can't take that chance anymore. So I have another set of these that I'm going to redo and take care of this issue. I'm going to set the other one out in the sun, and I'm going to put the camera on it, and we're going to see what happens during that process. So I set these out in the sun, and I set the time lapse at 10 times the speed, and you can start to see little bubbles start to appear, and I highlight that with the arrow. And this doesn't surprise me at this point. I know the other one had a bigger problem at the top, but I thought I would demonstrate this. You can just see these little bubbles popping, 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 popping. And some people would say it's solvent pop, but it is not. The side where this vertical portion is on the inside there isn't doing this at all. And so I'm just going to have to start over with a whole nother set and not take a chance on this happening again. Alright, this has been sitting out for about half an hour, and I'm not sure how well that shows up on the camera, but there's two bumps there, there's a bump there. Come over here, and it's hard to see, there's a bump there, a whole bunch down there, and this whole top surface is just bad. So, I can't believe it. I mean, I guess I can, but I don't want to believe it. I'm going to let this sit. Let it sit out in the sun some more. This is the driver's side. I brought it back out. And some of these bubbles had sort of collapsed. But I'm just going to let it sit out in the sun and continue to bake. Again, I'm not going to use these. I'll go with another set that I have, but just thought you might want to see what's going on. Well, since I can't do anything else up here until I take care of those headlight buckets, I'm going to work on the stripes. So this kit that I ordered, this is specific per side. So you can see this has a slight taper here coming back, and that is for the fender location. Of course, this is pretty obvious. Mach 1 is going to go towards the front. And then this next piece, you'll notice that these stripes are narrower at the front than they are at the rear. So if I were to take this piece, which ends up back here on the quarter panel, and compare it to this width, you'll see that's the same. If I were to bring that to the front and turn it around, you'll see that it's different. So different widths on those. Now the challenge is, how do I place this? I've looked at other videos. I did, take care of the back section already, so I'm not worried about that. And my understanding is it's about 6.5 inches from the lower body line to the top of this stripe. But I want to show you something that may cause some confusion. So I still have original parts from this car. There's the whole side. There's the fender, door, quarter panel. There's the other door. There's the other fender, and there's the other quarter panel. And I always hang on to this stuff until the end, and if it's usable, I'll use it. If not, it'll go away. Now at this point, I want to show you something. I've been looking at these over and over because I'm kind of picky, So if I take a measurement, see if I can get this in perspective, and I come from that body line up, right there, there's 6.5 inches. That's fantastic. I come back here, get on the fender, and that's basically 6.5 inches. Great. I come back here, get on the body line, and yes, I'm on the body line, and the top of this is at 7.25. I go to the next panel, the quarter panel, on the body line, 7.25 roughly. It's not 6.5, it's 7.25. So I'm tortured. I'm tortured now. I realize this is not 6.5 inches all the way through. In fact, if you go from this body line, get on that edge, and come to the top of that, that's at 5.5 from that body line. Come all the way to the front, get on that body line, and we're at 6.5 roughly, maybe 6 3/8. Go to the fender, 6.5. So I have to make a decision. Obviously I would like it to be even with the body line, but even the factory ones were not. And I struggle with stuff like this because part of me wants to make this exactly like it was, and part of me wants to make it exactly level with the body lines. And I think that's probably what I'll end up doing, but I just want to show you that because you can even see it here, how wide this is at the fender and how narrow it gets going back. So just one of those things. Now I've also measured the same thing on the other side and similar situation. So this one is at actually 6 3/8. It's not even 6.5. Come to the back, or front I should say, and this one's at a little over 6. So these factory ones were not close. Now back to this. What I will probably end up doing, I have some lasers that I can mount that'll give me a line on the side of the car, and I think what I'll probably do is jack up the back, get the laser line on that bottom body line, get it level, and then I'll measure up 6.5, and I have 2 of these laser things. I'll get the second one set and use that as my reference. I really don't see any other way to do it at this point. And of course, everything has to be the same. You know, it has to be flow all the way from front to back. So I'm going to get this set up and we'll move on from there. So at this point, I decided to use that bottom body line as my reference. And basically, I just kept moving the jack, you know, jacking up the back of the car, adjusting the height of the laser until I was content with the alignment on that bottom body line. It took me a little while because I kept trying to visualize it the wrong way, and I was like, no, I gotta change this. So I adjusted it here. I finally zeroed in to where I'm happy with that alignment, and you could see I went back and forth many times trying to make sure it was exactly where I wanted it. So I finally got it where I wanted it. Okay, I have both of my lasers set up, and I am right on the crease for the lower body line, and it flows all the way front to back, really nice. And that light is blinking right now because I think the batteries are dying. However, the second one, if I come up, I'm right on 6.5 inches. Hopefully you can see that okay. Let me look over here. So, right on 6.5 inches. So I think I'm going to change, I don't know if I need to, put a fresh set of batteries in the other laser just to keep a reference. But that gives me where I need to be on the side here. Yep, 6.5. So, essentially, this will be right there. I have to have it back far enough to wrap around the edge of the fender too. So, okay, let me get some stuff set up. So let's get this process started. Basically what I did here is I used wax and grease remover. In the article that was shared with me, it talked about using naphtha to wipe this down, and I decided to use wax and grease remover. It evaporates very quickly and it does a great job of making sure there's no residue left behind. You'll see a little piece of yellow tape in the middle of the door. What I did was I stretched the center section across the door and determined what would roughly be the center. And there's a little piece of tape on the backing for the stripe, and I used that as a reference so that I would know how much I had to the front and to the back. It took me a couple tries to get it exactly where I wanted it, but it helped me to have that visual reference. Now I went down the side of the car, and as I set the laser level, or the tape to that laser level, I gently pressed that upper stripe down, and then I started using the squeegee. In the article, it talks about starting from the center of the door and working your way forward and aft. And so that's what I did. I decided I would work the forward section and then peel off the remaining piece of backing material. So if you didn't notice it earlier, I'd peeled it back and then ripped off half of that backing material when I was setting this in place. Then as I got this upper line set where I wanted it, I kept pressing out the liquid that was there, the material that was used to move it around and keep it from sticking. Now here at the front, this was a little trickier because as you peel back on the decal, it wants to come back off. And so I had to be very careful and take my time using the squeegee to hang on to that front edge and then peeling away from the stripe or decal basically in the opposite direction. You don't want to pull straight out. You want to pull against the contact area. So I used a paper towel and the squeegee, and I continued to press out any liquid or air bubbles that were in there. You have to take your time doing this, because once you start and if you get in a hurry, you can stretch that decal, and that may come back to haunt you. And I'm just taking my time peeling this back. There you can see the yellow tape I was talking about, which was my center line. On the other side, I ended up using the laser line as my center. Just made it a little bit easier for me in that process. I still had a piece of tape on the backing material, and it worked out pretty good. Here I applied more of the sticker on, or whatever that stuff is called, and adjusted that front stripe. It took me a few tries, because even though I had the laser as a guide, I wanted to make sure that the overlap would be correct where they met. And so I kept going back and forth until I was satisfied with that. While it does matter to have that, that upper level even, I feel like it's probably more important to have the center stripe and everything else align as you look at it. It may not matter much at that point, if your laser is showing you're slightly off. I'd rather have that indication correct all the way through, and that'll pay off later on as it is finished. I continued to wipe out any of the air bubbles and anything that was in there, and then I moved to the back section. Now here I actually started to put this up, and then I went outside and came back in because I wanted to verify the gap, let's say, at the end of the stripe. So when you put it up there, it's easy to kind of go more to the rear, and you end up with a stripe too far up on the wheel arch. So I basically went with the original panel, and I looked at it. It was about, in my case, about a finger's width, let's say about 3/4 of an inch. And I used that as a reference when I got to the back. So that let me set that in place, and again leveled it up with the center stripe, and then I pulled the backing material forward. And here you end up with a lot of extra material, and that's good because it wraps around the door jamb and makes it look really nice. I almost wish the other pieces were just a little bit longer, because they barely wrapped around the end of the door and the fender. I'm very happy with the way this turned out. I want to show you something that relates to this. Now I have two lasers set up. So these little Bauer laser levels, they self-level, or you can lock them in a certain position and angle them however you need to. And what I used was the top, you can see the line there, the top of the stripe for the laser. And this person had sent me this information talking about the fact that this forward section does not line up with the rear section. The rear section is at a different angle. And I want to show you that because if you look at the red line that you can see clearly, hopefully see clearly, I have the top of the stripe in line, and you come back here, and I don't know how well it shows up, there is the line. So when I put the rear on, I'm going to block it there. So when I put the rear on, I used the side marker light as a reference, and I also used a measurement off the original panel coming off of this body line and coming up, and that's what gives you that. So in the document or in the paperwork that he had sent me, he pointed out that it's like 7 degrees of angle, and I feel like that's probably pretty accurate. So the back section's higher than the front section. I don't know if the light will reflect enough. Hard to tell with the camera. There you can see that that rear section is definitely higher than the front section as it's intended, and the angle, of as his paperwork said, was like something like 7 degrees. And so you can see from the front, or from the back section there coming forward, that it is definitely at an angle. So I have no problem with that at all. So I was able to get the stripes on the passenger side, and I also got them on the driver's side. At this point, that's about all I can do with these. There's a lot of information out there. There's variations on these stripes from the factory, and I think I got these as close as I need them to be, and I think they look really good. So when you visually look at these, you can kind of follow the body line and see that it's relatively, straight with the body line, even though the panels get wider towards the front. It's just one of those kind of, not really an optical illusion, but just kind of the way they play out. So at this point, I have set the cowl up here, and obviously I'm getting ready to black it out. And I've talked about these headlight extensions, or fender extensions, and the problems with whatever is in them. And a lot of people have sent me information, and apparently these things have issues because the pot metal is very porous and it'll hold on to anything that gets into it. So there's a variety of ways that this can probably be addressed. At this point, I'm not going to mess with these because I can't take the chance on this happening again, and these are going to get set aside. But some of the ideas were, a hot tank bath, or chemicals, and baking them in an oven and trying to get the stuff to evaporate out, cleaning with acetone, cleaning with MEK. There's a lot of things that can happen. So I could spend hours prepping these and then have it all start over again. And if it's just even one little bubble that pops up, then it's not worth it to me. So let me show you what I'm going to do. Back here in the paint booth area, I have another set of these, and these are original 69 headlight extensions. You can see it still has the original color there, which is kind of a gold. I'm not too worried about that, but these are in great shape. There's even the little ears that normally get broken off are intact. So I'll go through the steps again of taking these apart, removing anything that I can, any hardware that I can, because all that's going to get replaced anyway. And I'm going to strip these down completely, and I may try a couple different things. I'm not going to get too aggressive because I think these are in much better condition than the others. But I will strip these down. I may treat them with like navel jelly. I may wipe them down with lacquer thinner and whatever I can come up with to make this happen. But I've already posted videos on stripping these down, so it's not that big a thing I'm not going to do it again, is what I'm getting at. So I'll get these cleaned up, get them back into a primer and paint and all that sort of thing. And then up here I have the hood, of course, and I have buffed the edges here. I'm working on a video for this, for the blackout, and I ran into a problem, and I'll highlight it here because I'll let you know this section of the hood right here has a very subtle dip in it. If I haven't already mentioned this, I'm just going over it again. There's a very subtle dip that I didn't see when I was working this hood. So I'm going to have, in the hood video for this, I'm going to have a PDR guy come by and see if he can't massage that out and take care of it. Good friend of mine, I think he can handle it. So that's where we're at with the project. Now, there's other things that are going to happen. I have to finish building the quarter windows. So I'm working on taking those apart and rebuilding all the hardware and that sort of thing. I know that I've demonstrated putting in the stainless around the door openings, putting in the boomerang around the quarter window opening here. So I've done a video on all of that if you haven't seen it. But I need to get these windows taken apart and put back together. So I haven't done that before, at least not pulling them off of the metal piece that holds the window together. I have taken one apart, but I need to go through the steps of trying to get it back together. That's going to be the challenge. But in this video, I wanted to try to take care of getting the front end on the car, and unfortunately, due to those headlight buckets over there giving me grief, that's not going to happen. So that'll be the end of this video. There's more to come. I'm going to do another video on the blackout of the hood and anything else that I need to do to get this car ready to go down the road. So I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my patrons especially who help me out, keeping me going on these videos. YouTube doesn't compensate me very well for what I do, and I get it. I'm not an entertainer. I'm more of a kind of an educator person. So if you're interested in helping out with that, down below I have a link for a tip jar, And I also have a link for Patreon. There's also links for Amazon and all that sort of thing. You know, if you're interested, have a look at it. Otherwise, that'll be it for this video. So until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.